All right, today we're talking MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookies of the Year, Coach of the Year, and my Super Bowl champion on today's episode of You Don't Know Jack. All right, we are in this. It is finally here, the final prediction episode of, I guess, this prediction week, as I should say. Monday, we did the NFC division winners. On Wednesday, we did the AFC division winners. Today, we're doing Super Bowl and all of the player awards. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that one. But if you haven't watched those, go watch those. It's important context for today. I will be relating back to that or those two episodes. And plus, they're both a good time and a little bit of a discussion, not too in depth, just kind of hitting the main points of each division. And that relates us to today. And so to start, I want to start with the award winners because we'll save the Super Bowl prediction for the end. It's a shocker. So keep listening, keep watching. So, a lot of awards, I would say in the NFL, they don't mean as much. And you're like, Jackson, what are you talking about? Well, when you look at the MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, yes, you want your players to win that award. You want your player to be an MVP. You want your player to be, Offensive Rookie of the Year because it shows promise, it shows, success, it shows how good they are. You drafted the MVP. Look how good you are as a GM or even a front office. But if you look at it as a football-wise, compared to the NBA or even baseball, it doesn't really matter as much, right? Would you say, the MVP is really the best player? No, they probably had the best year. Right there, if you look at the last couple of years, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen have won the award. But would you take those guys over a quarterback like Mahomes? Right? They're better talents, they had better stats, they had a better year. But would you take it? So this isn't an argument about the worthiness or really the overall aura of the MVP. Rather, it's more of a discussion on how this award can really fluctuate between player to player, right? I mean, the last 2 years, we've had great debates on who should be MVP, right? 2 years ago, it was Lamar versus Dak. Lamar didn't have the better stats, but he had the better team. Dak had the better stats, but not had the worst team. So they ended up giving it to Lamar. Then the same thing happened last year with Josh Allen and Lamar. Lamar had the better stats. Josh Allen had the better team. And so it went to Josh Allen, right? And most of the time, people are like, okay, that's fair, right? But last year caused some tiffy. And so I got to take all of that into consideration when I'm making this pick. And so for my Super Bowl pick, it's based off team success and stats that this player must have. Because you kind of have to have both. I mean, that's in really all MVP awards. You have to have the stats and you have to have the team success to prove that you have an impact on winning, especially for your team. And so a number of guys, if you go back to kind of my division winners, I really had high hope, or I'm going to have high hopes in terms of winning on Green Bay, on Tampa, on Philadelphia, right? In the NFC, on the AFC, Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City. Most of these teams have been here before. And I do think there is there's the theory of voter fatigue, and I think that will come again to this year. Now, I think there's a lot of potential for a lot of these guys, right? My first instinct was to go with Jordan Love out of the Green Bay Packers, the quarterback. But I was a little hesitant. I looked at his stats. He is coming off a little bit of a down year. The offense, I would say, is still a little unproven. Yes, they drafted Matthew Golden. I think that's going to have huge ramifications in terms of the NFC North, and his name may come up later in this list. But I just couldn't trust the stats would be there. Team success, I think, is going to be there, but stats aren't going to be there. Now, again, you're like, Jackson, you just said that Josh Allen won it last year with having the better team, but not the stats. Well, this year, I think there will be team success and stats. Now, it's not in the AFC. I don't think Lamar, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes will win the award because they've won it in the past. And I think there could be a thing of voter fatigue. That's why my MVP pick this year is Baker Mayfield. I think he is going to have a really solid offense. I mean, you're talking fantasy-wise, people are already so high on Bucky Irving. Now, I'm not making this a fantasy football debate, but they have a good backfield. They have Mike Evans, who's almost guaranteed for 1,000 yards every year. Chris Godwin's going to miss some time, but if he comes back, he's a deadly weapon if he comes back in full force. The real key to this offense is going to be the impact of Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver, first-round pick out of Ohio State. How is he going to impact this offense? And I think he's going to impact it massively. Right? You look at Baker Mayfield's stats from the last 2 years in Tampa. 4,500 yards, 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns in his first year, 41 touchdowns last year. I mean, truly great. His completion percentage last year was 71.4. Right? The guy has proven to put up numbers, right? And so this year, I have his team in the second seed in the NFC. I have them with a 12-5 record. I think that will be plenty good enough for them to kind of propel him to be the MVP. Plus, it'll be a great story. You know, Tampa, they have an easy division. He'll be able to put up monster games because people love to have the headlines, right? If your MVP doesn't make headlines, doesn't have highlight plays, he probably won't win it. And so I think Baker Mayfield has a chance to really have a very good passing season and also team success. So that's why I think he'll be the MVP this year. It's a little unconventional of a pick, but I don't think I looked stupid in saying Baker Mayfield's going to win MVP. It's an unconventional pick, but I like it and I can live with it. Then we go to Offensive Player of the Year. Now, this is truly the award to see who is the most impactful offensive player, right? Now, this can really range a lot of positions. Quarterback, wide receiver, running back, lineman. I think lineman's an underrated award. I know they have Protector of the Year. I haven't actually put that on here because I feel like that could go any way. Health is a huge determinant of that award. But for Offensive Player of the Year, I went with a guy who absolutely had a great year last year, and that's Ja'Marr Chase. I think Ja'Marr Chase is in an excellent position to succeed. He's an elite quarterback. He's a great wide receiver too. They've invested a lot in that wide receiver core, him and T. Higgins. I think that will be passing like crazy, and I think he'll put up big yards. I do have faith in this Bengals team making the playoffs, so I think that will help him. But also, I think, they will have one of the better offenses, and I think he'll be a big proponent of that. I don't want to project his stat line, but I think he could have well over 150 receptions and maybe close to 1,800 yards, maybe even a 2,000-yard season. That might be crazy. That might not be great for the Bengals, but especially since they, invested a lot in T. Higgins, I think Ja'Marr is a huge position this season to really go off. Other guys are notable, other receivers, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. Those are guys that could easily win this award. But I think Ja'Marr Chase has Joe Burrow, the best quarterback out of any of those quarterbacks. And so for that, that's why I'm going Ja'Marr Chase as my Offensive Player of the Year. But then we go to the other side, go Defensive Player of the Year. Now this is really dependent on the defense as a whole. I truly believe so. Now again, it usually goes to a pass rusher. Last year though, it did go to Pat Surtain. I do think it goes back to the pass rushing this year, and I think it does go to Micah Parsons. Obviously, he made the big news headlines, being traded from Dallas to Green Bay. Obviously, as a Cowboys fan, I hate this, but I think he has a real opportunity to win it this year. If he doesn't win it this year, and it's not because of health, that's a massive missed opportunity for Micah in his legacy. So yes, Micah Parsons is my predicted winner of Defensive Player of the Year. May, be not a flashy pick. He hasn't had more than 15 sacks in a season, whereas usually Defensive Player of the Years for pass rushers, they get near 20. But I think he'll have way more opportunities with a better Packers defense than he would have on the Cowboys. And also team success is a huge proponent as this as well, especially since I think they could have a top 10 defense as well. So Micah Parsons is my Defensive Player of the Year. Then we have both Rookie of the Years, offensive and defensive. I think the offensive actually goes to a wide receiver this year. Usually it goes to a quarterback that steps into a starting role. I do think Cam Ward has potential this year to put up numbers, but I think in terms of the effects on the offense is that these players are going to have. I have two players listed, and I really can't make my mind up. It's between Matthew Golden and the aforementioned Emeka Egbuka. I think Emeka Egbuka's chance for this award will start hot, but maybe when Chris Godwin gets back in the lineup, it could dip. Whereas Matthew Golden starts as the potential wide receiver one and has a chance to stay that throughout the entire season. Now again, do I think it is between these guys? I think there's other players, an Ashton Jeanty that could play into it, Cam Ward, like I mentioned. But I think these are the safer bets just in terms of the production that they can have on the field. If I had to lean one way or the other, I really like both of these talents. I would have to go with Emeka Egbuka because I think there's better quarterback play there. And I think they have a chance to really be more of a pass-heavy team. And that's why I'll go with Emeka Egbuka as my Offensive Rookie of the Year. Then we got the Defensive Rookie of the Year. I went with Abdul Carter here with the Giants. I think that Giants front seven is going to be absolutely insane. Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. It's absolutely stacked. Absolutely stacked. It's number 3 pick. He has the talent. The defense is going to be there, I think, at least from a pass rushing perspective. And so for him, it's really just about maintaining health and, keeping it consistent. Because the Giants, who knows about their offense? A lot of people are actually somewhat higher on the offense than I thought for the Giants. I think they'll be manageable. I think it'll be way better than it was under Daniel Jones. But I also think there's high probability for this team to just unravel upon itself, right? And so it'll have to depend on the defense, especially that pass rush, to make some noise. That's when we're going to Abdul Carter for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Then we're going to Comeback Player of the Year, player that came off injury last year, missed most of the season. I think this goes to Dak Prescott. I've already stated what I think about the Cowboys this year. Don't think it's going to be a good year, but I think this offense is going to be really good. And the addition of George Pickens is why I believe that Dak will win this award. I think he'll have the numbers. They're going to be down. They're going to be passing. CeeDee Lamb's going to have a great year. George Pickens is going to have a great year. Offense is going to be fun to watch. That's why Dak Prescott is going to be my Comeback Player of the Year. He almost won it when he came back in 2021. Lost it to Joe Burrow. I think there's a little bit of, I want to look back at those stats. I think he was low-key a little robbed of the award, but it's a different problem. It's a different situation. But I think Dak will have, huge success this year offensively. And I think he'll have a chance to win Comeback Player of the Year. Then we're going to the final award is Coach of the Year. This is solely dependent on team success. Obviously, it's the coach. Kind of has to be. And I'm going with Matt LaFleur. I don't believe he's won the award before. I could be wrong. I have Green Bay as my 1 seed in the NFC. Obviously, that'll translate to Matt LaFleur winning the award. And I don't think there's too much to go into it. Maybe Sean McDermott, since I have Buffalo with the 1 seed. But other than that, maybe Sean Payton, since Denver's my 5 seed. But I'm going to bet on just overall team success, and that's why I have Matt LaFleur as my Coach of the Year. So that is my award winners. MVP, Baker Mayfield. Offensive Player of the Year, Jamar Chase. Defensive Player of the Year, Micah Parsons. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Emeka Egbuka. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Abdul Carter. Comeback Player of the Year, Dak Prescott. Coach of the Year, Matt LaFleur. And so now we have my Super Bowl bubble. This is big, right? This is where I declare my Super Bowl winner for this year. Now, do I think this pick has much weight? Somewhat, right? If it looks stupid, I'll look stupid. If an injury goes the wrong way, this list can completely fall apart. But there's a lot of people talking about bubbles and whatnot. Let's go on the teams outside of the bubble first. So these are teams that I think will make noise in the playoffs, but won't win the Super Bowl, or potentially won't even get to the Super Bowl. So the first team, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Look, I like the Rams. The addition of Devontae Adams, Matthew Stafford looking healthy for week 1, the defense looking really good. But there's just something about the Rams where I'm like, do I see them winning the NFC over teams like Green Bay and Philly? I don't. And that's not a dig on the Rams. I think they will make it to the divisional round like they usually do. But I just don't think they have that it factor as a team to win the Super Bowl this year. Similar to Washington, I have them on the outside of the bubble. Now, I keep teetering, back and forth between do I like Washington this year or do I not? I look at their defensive roster. I'm like, that's pretty bad. And when you have to sign Von Miller late in the offseason, that's not good for your defense. And so for Washington, I only have them at 10 wins as a wild card team. I can't, maybe 2011? Last time a wild card team made the Super Bowl? No, sorry. 2021 with the 49ers. Duh. Right? Or was that no, that was the Rams. What am I talking about? Regardless, for them to go win 3 straight road games, I think it will be tough. Obviously, they made the NFC Championship last year. Teams won't be necessarily sleeping on them the way that teams were last year. I like the progression of Jaden Daniels this year. Terry McLaurin has signed his deal. The offense seems steady. The running back room is a little skeptical. And for that reason, I have Washington on the outside of my Super Bowl bubble. Then I'll lump in Tampa Bay and San Francisco. Now, San Francisco could very much surprise me and jump into the bubble. But I could see them winning. I could see them making the Super Bowl, which kind of is inconsistent with my list. But I also see a scenario in which they do not win it. Like I don't see a situation where they win it. And maybe that's a Brock Purdy thing. Maybe that's the health of Brandon Ayuk, right? Maybe is Ricky Pearsall a reliable wide receiver one to start the year? There's a lot of factors with San Francisco that we're unsure about. And for those reasons, I can't necessarily bet on them to win multiple playoff games. They don't even win their division. So they would have to win 3 straight road playoff games, which is tough. Extremely tough when you have to travel to potentially a Green Bay or even a Philadelphia. And then I have Tampa Bay. And I know I've just given Baker Mayfield the MVP. I have them as my 2nd seed. But we always see teams that get high seeds that flake out in the playoffs. Last year was Detroit, right? 2 years ago was Dallas. We see teams all the time with successful elite regular seasons that flame out. Now, if I had to nitpick something about Tampa Bay, it's like, is their defense going to stay healthy enough? Is their team, it's an older team, is their team going to stay healthy enough later part in the season or even through the playoffs to win the game? Or to win games, I should say. Because, again, I could see them making the NFC Championship this year, but do they beat a Green Bay? Do they beat a Philly? Do they have better defensive playmakers than those teams? No. And for that reason, I just have them on the outside of my Super Bowl bubble. Then we transition to some of my AFC teams that are outside the bubble. I have Houston. Look, Houston feels like a sure thing to win a playoff game. But it still feels like they're many pieces away from really contending. I think they benefit from an easy division. And for that reason, I'm not bought into Houston this year in terms of winning it all. And then I have Cincinnati. And it's just the defensive thing. Offensive problems won't be a thing. Well, their offense will be great. Their defense, another big question mark. I got Trey Hendrickson back this year for his deal, his 1-year reconstruction. Interesting deal. And so for them, again, I think they'll be good enough to make the playoffs, not to win the division. But that will limit them in terms of their postseason success. Because again, they would have to go to 3 straight road games to make the Super Bowl. And potentially having to play Kansas City in Arrowhead that first game could be the end of it. Now, they've done it. They've gone on the road, beat Kansas City in Arrowhead, which I don't believe a team has done under the Patrick Mahomes era since Tom Brady. And so for that, obviously Joe Burrow did it, but for that reason, I have Cincinnati out. So now let's talk about some of my playoff sleepers first, before I get inside the bubble. So some of the teams I'll quickly hit on. I have Miami as a playoff sleeper. I have them as my 7th seed in the AFC. A lot of people are selling their stock on Miami. I still think they could have I still believe they have a top 10 offense. Deadly wide receivers, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Tua, if he can stay healthy, this team will be good. Obviously, it depends on his health. And that is something you can't necessarily bank on, which is a little frustrating from a prediction standpoint. But I think he stays healthy this year, especially for a prove-it year with Miami. Like, if it doesn't work this year, you kind of have to blow it up. And so I have them as a playoff sleeper. Their schedule, too, is fairly easy from my recollection. So then I have Chicago or Minnesota. Not both. And I'm going to actually say Chicago here, because I do have Minnesota finishing last with 6-11. So I have to somewhat stay consistent. So I'm going to say Chicago is a playoff sleeper. I just think they play in a really tough division. They could go I could see them potentially going 0-6 in their division, and then you just, really struggle to get other wins. But the rest of their schedule is fairly easy, right? So if their offense can show some form of consistency, if Caleb Williams can show that step under Ben Johnson, this team could easily make the playoffs, right? I have them in an 8-9 record. They could easily get a win or 2 more, right? They're only 2 games behind Detroit for that last wildcard spot, according to my rankings. There's a chance. There is multiple chances for this Bears team to make the playoffs. Then I have Atlanta, just the easier division. If Michael Penix Jr. shows, hey, I was worthy of that first round pick, bang, they could easily make the playoffs. I have the Chargers. A lot of people are high on the Chargers this year. I just kind of see the same problems that we always see with the Chargers. They got a good run game, but the wide receivers are a little lackluster. Who knows about that aging defense? No more Joey Bosa there. I don't love Los Angeles, but I think there's a chance for them to really figure it out offensively, which could lead to way more wins. And then Arizona. I think Arizona is maybe the most slept on team this year, especially with the evolution of Marvin Harrison Jr. stepping in his sophomore year as a wide receiver. Kyler Murray, I'm high on, usually. So for Arizona, again, it's a tougher division, but their schedule is easy. And so I have them, I believe, at 8-9. Yeah, 8-9 in that division. They're only 2 games back from my winners of that division of San Francisco and Los Angeles. 3 wins, but they could easily get 2 more wins and supersede for that 7th seed in the NFC. But then I have some teams that I'm going to fade, and I'm selling my stock on them. Pittsburgh, I'm out. Don't trust Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback in the year 2025. I just can't do it. DK Metcalf is great, but is he truly a number one? Like, is he a number one that can lead a team offensively? I don't really think so. I don't think he's in that top tier. He may be at the bottom of tier 2 if I were to do wide receivers rankings. And so for that reason, I'm out on Baltimore, or out on Pittsburgh. Las Vegas, I just think they're trying to salvage something that hasn't really, begun to be anything. The Ashton Jeanty pick, I think, is good, but it feels like more of a win now move rather than a rebuild move. I like Geno Smith coming over, getting a veteran presence. Pete Carroll will be interesting. And for them, I do think they progress. You show signs of being a really competitive football team. However, I'm just not ready to put my stock in them yet. Then I have Jacksonville. A lot of people are like, Jacksonville's going to bounce back. They're going to bounce back. But outside of Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter potentially on offense, who do you love on the offensive side of the ball for Jacksonville? There's not a lot of people, right? What about their defense? There's not really a lot to love about their defense. I think they lose twice to Houston. I think there's a chance that Tennessee snags a game. I think there's a chance that the Colts snag a game from them. You can't lose to those bad teams. You can't. And so for those reasons, I'm out on Jacksonville. I just think they could get snake bit and their season could unravel. Then I have New England. I think it's too early to really invest stock in New England, right? If you're talking about like a future for the next 3 years, oh yeah, sure, absolutely. I like getting Mike Vrabel as a head coach, right? Drake May looks like to be a very solid, reliable starter in the NFL. But for this season, no. I believe I have them at 7-10, which is a great progression from last season. But it's not going to be good enough. And I think it's a little early with them. And then I have Minnesota. And I was teetering back and forth between, them making the playoffs or really fading them. I don't have them making the playoffs. I have them being the worst team in the NFC North, which I feel like has a high chance to age like milk. I don't think it's, I think they are probably the most confusing team in that whole NFC North. Because you could easily be like, I don't think Chicago's going to work. I'm going to bank on them not working. But if it does, right? I think there's more of a chance Chicago's offense succeeds rather than Minnesota, which is crazy to say, right? Minnesota, they have Jordan Addison after the first 3 games. Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson is there. Like, they have weapons offensively. But there's something wrong about it. Right now, if you were to tell me last year, I was like, oh, it's Sam Darnold, I'm fading it. So, who knows? Kevin O'Connell could really coach up another masterpiece. And if he does that, if Minnesota comes in second or even somehow wins the division, have a similar year to last year, he, in my opinion, is the best coach in the NFL at that point. But for that reason, I kind of have to fade him. It's probably going to age like milk. But I got to stand on business of my decisions. So that's what we're going to do. Now it is time to get into my Super Bowl bubble. These are teams that I would not be shocked if they make the Super Bowl. Now I'll list them off here. Green Bay, Detroit, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo. Not a shocker, right? You're like, you really have this? No, like you're not shocked by those, I bet. It's because the NFL really does, in my opinion, lack parity. The best team will always win. Now, that's a great thing. If you build a great team, you deserve to make it, especially with how the playoffs work. But Detroit was a team there last year. Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, they were all there. New teams for me, if you were to say for this point last season, is Green Bay and Philadelphia. Obviously, Philadelphia, the defending champs. They lost some pieces, but not too many for them to really regress that much. I think their offensive identity is still there. The defense, a little skeptical, but still they showed great progress last year. And Green Bay, I think, made the best move this offseason, and it propelled them from being a fringe contender to be a true contender. And that's why I have them in my Super Bowl bubble. But, so out of those 6 teams, Green Bay, Detroit, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore, which teams do I believe are going to make the Super Bowl out of those 6? I think out of the NFC, it will be the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate to say it, but I think they're still the best roster in the NFC by a fairly large margin than you think it is. I don't think it's fairly close if you look at the rosters, especially offensively compared to these other teams, right? The best running back, best offensive line, potentially the best duo at wide receiver. They got the decent quarterback, right? Super Bowl MVP quarterback. And I think it's just a little early on Tampa. And Green Bay offensively has to show me that they're there. And I just don't think they're there yet, especially in the run game. I know Josh Jacobs is great, but run game and how it really propels that wide receiver game. Because I don't think they have that true one at wide receiver. Even though I just was giving flowers to Matthew Golden, I have to see it first. Like I can't just bank on a rookie to perform. Right? I can do that for the awards. Can't do that for the Super Bowl pick. And then out of the AFC, Kansas City is always a team that you can't, really shy away from. You can't be like, Kansas City's not going to do it this year. But it would be 4 straight Super Bowls for them. A lot of people in the media are fading them. And I feel like I kind of have to jump on that bandwagon. Because if Kansas City makes it again, it's just kind of right? It's like, of course. And now look, they have the best playoff quarterback, best playoff coach. It won't be a shock if they make it. But I think this year is the year that they fall. And they fall to Baltimore, or not to Baltimore, to Buffalo. They fall to the Buffalo Bills. I believe I had that in the AFC Championship. And I think it's the year for Josh Allen to really show, hey, I am, and I don't want to say all-time great because it's just like, oh, he finally beat Mahomes. But he is one of the greats of this era, right? He has shown during the regular season. He's won an MVP, right? He's made an AFC Championship game. But is he truly one of the great quarterbacks of this generation? I think this year will be the year he proves it, defeats Mahomes in the playoffs to make it the Super Bowl. So we have the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Buffalo Bills. And I do have Philadelphia winning it this year. Yes, it sucks. Absolutely sucks. I can't believe I've said this. But I just, from a purely objective point of view, I have Philadelphia winning it. Hopefully it ages like milk. Like I said, I'm begging for it. But at the end of the day, Philadelphia still has the best run game in the NFL, best offensive line, best wide receivers. The defense can even have a lackluster game against Buffalo, right? And I still think Philadelphia will win. It would have to take, for me to pick Buffalo, would have to be like they have a true number 1 wide receiver breakout. Or James Cook really takes this offense to the next level in the run game. Or even just at the running back position. And so for those reasons, I have Philadelphia defeating the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 60? Yes. In Super Bowl 60. It's kind of crazy. It's unfortunate. But here's where we are. And this is what I got to live with. I got to sleep at night saying I predicted the Philadelphia Eagles to win the Super Bowl. That just sounds gross. Speaking of which, this is actually going to be posted on Friday, September 5th. But I'm recording this on September 4th before the Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles matchup wins. And I'm going to throw a little something here. You already know the outcome of the game. But if the Cowboys have won, that will be one of the greatest Cowboys regular season victories since, 2018 potentially. So let's cross our fingers. This is past Jackson with some optimism. I don't think they're going to win. But if they win, that'd be sweet. Anyways, that'll do it for this episode of You Don't Know Jack. Jackson James here again. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. We'll be back on Monday with our first week thoughts. That's going to be a very fun episode. Very fun. So we're back. The NFL season's begun. Game 1's already happened when you're watching this. We got another game later tonight. It's going to be great. I'm excited. You want my score prediction for the Eagles Cowboys real quick? So I get that. You know what? Let's do it. I was thinking, 31-21? 34-21. 34-21 Eagles. Cool. We got it on tape. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. to wherever you get your podcasts. This has been Jackson James, and you're listening to You Don't Know Jack.